I guess you are getting my screen and voice. Please confirm. Please confirm in chat box. Good. Yeah. Right, guys. So in last session, we have completed our discussion about Linux. In Linux, we have seen how to create the files, how to work with the files, how to work with the permissions, and all these things we have seen. Right. As part of today's session, so we are going to discuss shell scripting. Guys, already I told, if you want, our actual DevOps with AWS is not yet started. If you want work with DevOps with AWS, compulsory you guys should have knowledge on Linux. So that Linux part, whatever we discussed till last session, that is more than enough to work with DevOps with AWS. Right, today we are going to discuss, right, I need 3.5 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours I require to discuss about this shell script basics, guys. With this, we are okay to continue our DevOps with AWS. Okay, right. So today I'm going to start shell scripting. Please concentrate, guys. Shell scripting. Guys, anyone can tell what is a shell? What is a shell? Please respond, guys. Anyone can tell what is shell? Anyone have idea what is shell? Shell is a programming language. Okay. Shell is a program. Let me give me 1 minute, guys. Let me open our AWS also. Guys, after connecting with our Linux virtual machine, we are giving some commands, guys, like ls-l, touch command, cat command, right, wget command, vi command. We are giving all these commands. So now tell me, who will read all these commands and who will verify, right, whether these commands are correct or not, guys? Please tell me, guys. Here we are giving some commands. We are giving some commands, guys. Who will take all these commands and who will verify whether those commands are valid commands or not? Give me 1 minute, guys. Let me connect with our virtual machine. Right, guys. See, guys, here we are going to give some commands like ls-l. These commands we are giving, guys, ls-l. So it is showing all the available files. Now here I am giving some command like touch f12.txt. We are creating one empty file by using touch command. Same way you can create files by using cat command. All these are what, guys? All these are our commands, guys. Now here, whenever I have given this command ls-l touch f2.txt, if you want run anything, if you want execute anything, compulsory we should require some hardware devices, guys. Without having hardware resources, can you able to run any program? Guys, please tell me. Without having any hardware resources, is it possible to run the program? No, we can't. To execute any program, to perform any activity in the computer, compulsory we should have some hardware resources. Right? Is it possible to get those hardware resources directly? Can you able to connect with those hardware resources directly? No, we can't able to connect with the hardware resources directly. Then who will provide those hardware resources? Who will connect with those hardware resources? Right here we have kernel is available. Kernel is going to connect with the hardware resources. What is this, guys? Kernel. Kernel is available. This kernel is going to connect with the hardware resources. See, guys, here I have set of hardware resources are available. RAM is available, CPU is available, like that set of hardware resources are available at here. So this is my RAM, this is my CPU, right? Like this, some hardware resources are available to execute any command. Some hardware resources are required. Who will provide those hardware resources? How you will get those hardware resources? Through kernel you can able to get the hardware resources. Right. So now how you will tell to kernel, how you can able to tell to kernel, guys? Here before this kernel we have shell is available. We have shell is available before this kernel. Shell. Let's try to understand. This is the shell. Shell is available, kernel is available at here. Right. So as a user, we are giving some commands on the shell. Here as a user, we are giving some commands like ls-l, all these commands we are giving it here. As a user, we are giving some commands.
Hey.
Observe carefully, guys. This is our Linux architecture, guys. This is our Linux architecture. Here what is happening exactly? Whatever the commands we are giving, those commands are reading by this shell, guys. Shell is responsible for reading the commands which are given by the user. Here, whatever the commands you are giving, those commands will be read by the shell. Shell will read all these commands. What shell will do? Shell will verify commands, whether these commands are correct or not. Shell will verify the commands and it will give the instructions to kernel to process that commands, guys. Here what it will do, shell will read the commands and it will verify the commands. If the command is valid, then shell will give the instructions to kernel to process those commands. Guys, here you are not getting, see, ls-l. When you run ls-l, you are not getting all these things from kernel, sorry, from shell, guys. You are not getting all these things from shell. What shell is doing? Whenever you have given this command, shell will read this command and it will verify whether this command is valid or not. If it is valid, then shell will give the instructions to kernel to process that command. Right, to process that command, kernel will use some hardware resources. If you want to process anything, compulsory some hardware resources are required. Who will take those hardware resources? Kernel will take those hardware resources. Shell will give the instructions to kernel to process the command. To run that command, whatever the hardware resources are required, kernel will take care of that one. Is it clear, guys? Suppose if the given command is not valid, shell will not going to send that command to kernel, guys. Here shell only will return the error. That command is invalid syntax, right? Like that, shell only will return the error message. When shell will give the instructions to kernel, if the command is valid, then only shell will give the instructions to kernel. Guys, observe very carefully. As a user, I'm going to type ls-l. As a user, I'm going to type just ls-l. Who will read this command? This shell will read that command. Here, whatever user is typing, those commands will be read by shell. Right? What shell will do? Shell will verify those commands are valid commands or invalid command. If that command is valid, then shell will give the instructions to kernel to process that command. Right? If kernel wants to process that command, what required? Kernel requires some hardware resources. So kernel will connect with those hardware resources, and what hardware resources are required? Kernel will take those hardware resources and it will process the command. Is it understand? Is it clear, guys? This is our Linux architecture, guys. Right? Just we are typing the commands on git bash. Internally, this is the process what is happening at backend. Internally, so this is the process going to happen, guys. Right? As a user, just you are giving some commands. Who will take those commands? Shell will take those commands to verify whether those commands are valid or not. If those commands are valid, then shell will pass those commands to kernel. Right? Kernel will process that command by using these hardware resources. Is it clear? Guys, please respond in chat box. Is it clear? Right. So can I tell shell is going to work as a mediator between user and kernel? Can I tell shell is going to work as a mediator between shell and kernel? Sorry, shell is going to work as a mediator between user and kernel. Whatever the commands user is giving, those commands will take by shell only. Shell only will give those commands to kernel. Now, can I tell kernel is going to work as a mediator between shell and hardware resources? These are the hardware resources. Shell is going to work as a mediator between user and kernel. Kernel is going to work as a mediator between shell and hardware resources. Hardware resources, guys. Have a look into this diagram. Simple, guys. Right? All the commands will read by shell. Shell will verify those commands. See here, I'm giving command like this. I'm giving command like this. See here, I'm going to give command like this I'm giving f50.txt, command not found, command not found. Who is giving this message? Who is giving this message? Is this message is coming from the kernel or is it coming from shell? Shell only. Shell is verifying the command. Shell is validating the command. If the command is not valid, shell will give this message. If the command is valid, then shell will forward that command to kernel to process that command. Who is validating? Shell only validating the commands, guys. Whatever the commands user is giving, all the commands will be validated by shell only. Shell is going to work as a mediator between user and kernel. What kernel will do? Kernel will take the instructions from the shell and kernel will process the commands by using hardware resources. To process any command, some hardware resources must be required. To execute any program, some hardware resources must be required. Same here also, whatever the instructions shell is giving to kernel, kernel will follow those instructions to process the command. Is it clear, guys? This is our Linux architecture, guys. This is our Linux architecture. What is the shell, guys? Shell will read the, shell is responsible for reading the commands given by the user. Shell is responsible for reading the instructions given by user. Whatever the commands user is giving, those commands shell will read, guys. Shell is responsible for reading the instructions given by the user. Okay, next what shell will do? Shell will verify, shell will validate those commands. Shell will validate those commands and will given instructions and will give instructions to kernel to process those commands. What it will do, guys? Shell will validate those commands and it will give the, guys, please mute, I'm getting some background noise. Shell will validate those commands and it will give instructions to kernel to process those commands, guys. And it will give instructions to kernel to process those commands. If a command is invalid, who will return the error, guys? If command is invalid, if command is not valid, if command is not valid, then shell only will return the error message. Shell only will return the error message. Shell is responsible for reading the commands, guys, not instructions. Commands. Shell is responsible for reading the commands given by user. Shell will validate those commands and it will give